Thanks a lot, Yasmin. Well, in 2010 election news, the general election is now just 5 days away, and the tightest race is for the first congressional seat. Polls show that incumbent Republican Charles Djou and Democrat Colleen Hanabusa are in a statistical dead heat.
And Senate President Colleen Hanabusa joined us on our morning newscast yesterday. And today, KITV4's Dan Meisenzahl is with Representative Charles Djou in studio. Dan?
All right, thank you very much. And Congressman Djou, thanks so much for joining us.
Good morning. Thank you very much for having me on.
Really appreciate it. Now, the big question is, what questions haven't we asked you in your numerous appearances? But here's something I wanted to ask you. I had a chance to cover the city council a number of years ago when you were on the council. And you always had a reputation for being, even if you disagreed with somebody, just being very fair and honest and actually just being nice about it. The tone of this campaign, not necessarily your ads, but the ads coming from these national groups that are coming in, have they even made you uncomfortable, accusing Hanabusa, Senate President Hanabusa, of corruption and just the tenor of the campaign? Yeah. It's almost very un-Djou-like.
Thank you, Dan. Dan. Let me first begin by saying that these mainline attack ads here and the amount of spending that has gone on from these mainline attack groups here it really has been, I think, a little bit disappointing. Just and putting it in scale terms, the amount of money that has been spent attacking my opponent has been somewhere in the range of $250,000, $300,000. But the amount of attack ads that have been dumped against me have been well in excess of $1 million. But, Dan, I think for me, the single most difficult and challenging aspect for myself running for the United States Congress, it hasn't been the long hours. It hasn't been all the sign waving. I think for me, the worst aspect of running for this seat has been sitting down with my children and explaining to them what all these attack ads mean, especially when they sing all these nasty things that are simply unfair and wrong about myself and my career.
That's been said that's been so nasty. I mean, just give me an example of one of the things that's out there that you really, really have a problem with.
Sure. I mean, for example, saying that I am against teachers or somehow against education. Dan, I am the dad of three wonderful children, and that's the single most important thing in my life. And to say that I'm against education when that's absolutely, patently false is wrong.
It is true that you voted against that stimulus bill that would have provided federal dollars for education, not for Hawaii, because Hawaii had their books in order, so to speak, but for other states. These are children that had nothing to do with their state's budget crisis, but you voted against that bill. So, I mean, is it just a half-truth? Is it taking a germ of truth?
Dan, what those ads are doing is really mischaracterizing my record, and it is simply misleading to the people of Hawaii, and I think unfair. And you pointed it out correctly here. That state bailout bill was seeking to bail out Illinois and California and New York, and I take the position that the taxpayers of California and Illinois and New York should bail out their own states. We shouldn't be asking the people of Hawaii to bail out Illinois.
But you are leaving those
here.
Some would argue you're leaving those kids hanging there. But let's move on to another subject. You say that if you're unhappy with Congress, then you should vote for Charles Djou. But don't the Republicans have some share to blame? I mean, they have ever since the Obama administration has gotten in office and the Democrats have taken the majority of both the Senate and the House. It's been an obstructionist type of political view. Like there are a lot of things that haven't been passed. That small business bill, for example, that finally got pushed through the Senate just before the primary election. I mean, aren't Republicans also don't they share the blame? They haven't exactly been hand in hand with the Democrats.
Dan, you're right. I do think that the Republicans do share some of the blame, particularly, in the Bush administration and when the Republicans had control of the Congress. They recklessly spent money, but the Democrats have turned a bad situation and made it worse. When the Bush administration left office, the budget deficit was around $500 billion. When the Obama administration came in and the Democrats took control of Congress, they turned that $500 billion budget deficit into $1.3 trillion budget deficit. So, yes, the Republicans certainly dug a hole for this nation, but the Democrats and the Obama administration have dug it even deeper. That's wrong. That's why it's so important to change the direction of our Congress this coming election, 5 days from now.
I'm afraid we're out of time. I have to ask you real quick. I'll give you 30 seconds. What's the final push? The last 4 or 5 days, what's the final push? What do you do to reach independent voters? The clock starts.
Yeah, we are working very, very hard. Dan, we're trying to work hard every minute, every hour, every day, reach every single voter we can. I mean, I am out there. I mean, if I can work 24/7 the next 5 days, I absolutely will. It's all about voter contact, touching people, shaking their hands, and personally asking them for the vote. And that's exactly what I'm doing.
Congressman Charles Djou, thank you so much for
joining us.
Hey,
thank you very, very much, Dan. I really appreciate it.
We'll see you one more time before the general election.
Sounds good.
And if you'd like to see this interview or any of the candidate interviews right here on KITV4, all you have to do is go to our morning news section of KITV.com, and let's go to commercial break right now. You're watching KITV4 News. It is 6:12.